Start with, okay, so we'll start with the elements of the first group, right? Uh, Earlier we talked about the periodic table, and in this particular segment of the lecture, we'll talk about the group one elements. The group one elements are also called as the alkaline metals, okay? The alkali metals we can for. And there are a total of six elements in group one. They're all metals. So the group one is the extreme left group of the periodic table, right? So the extreme left side of the periodic table contains metals, right? And as you move from left to right, you shift from metals, right? You shift from metals to metalloids, and then you go to non-metals, and non-metals ke baad you move to noble gases, right? Noble gases, which are completely inert and they don't like to react. So on the extreme left side of the periodic table is the group one, and it consists of six elements, which are all metals. The elements from top to bottom are lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. Okay. If you talk about their names, so notice that their names have an em at the end, like at the end with an em sound, and this is because these elements are all metals. All of the metals, Johanna, they are all ending with an em sound. Uh, Most of the metals, at least, they end with an em sound, right? So uh, for all of the groups that we're going to discuss from now onwards, we should know about the trends of their physical properties, their chemical properties, and any particular reactions that they show. Okay, the common reactions that they undergo, right? So you have to like kind of memorize them. Okay, so let's talk about the physical properties, the trends of physical properties of all group one elements. See, for all physical properties, chemical properties, if you understand the trend, okay, then it shouldn't be really hard for you to understand, uh, for you to solve any question related to group one elements, right? Okay, so if we talk about the physical properties of group one elements, so uh, they're all metals, they're soft and shiny. So if you take a piece of sodium, if you take a piece of sodium, you can just even cut it with a butter knife, okay, because they're really soft. So that's one of the properties of group one metals, that they're really soft. They're shiny, of course, because they're metals. They conduct electricity and heat as usual, as all metals do. They exist in solid state at room temperature. They have melting and boiling points that are lower as compared to other metals. And we'll talk about this uh, later, okay, why they have such low melting and boiling points. The density of metals is low. That is also related to the same reason why they have low melting and boiling points. So let's just go over why do group one metals have low melting and boiling points. Rafi, can you think of any reason why they have low melting and boiling points?
Um, because their force of attraction is very low as they have only one electron in their valence shell.
Mhm.
So it is easy to like change their state.
Okay, okay, सही है. Um, yes, you're kind of right. ठीक है. So इसमें यही है कि obviously when you are like at the extreme left of the periodic table, when you're at the extreme left of the periodic table, so your proton numbers are low, okay? Your electron numbers are very low, of course, right? And that's why you don't have a very, very strong electronic cloud, right? You don't have a very strong electronic cloud. And that's why the electrostatic forces of attraction, the metallic bonds between the metal atoms are very weak. And that's why they have low melting and boiling points as compared to other metals, which are, for example, let's just take transition metals like iron or maybe copper, right? So they have a higher melting and boiling points. The density of these metals is also low. Okay, and that's this is because the same reason, because they're not, because these individual metal atoms, uh, जो है ना, they are farther apart because of the force of attraction, and that's why they're not as densely packed as the other. Okay, so
रिएक्टिव भी ज्यादा होते हैं
yes, they are reactive as well. So
वो
chemical,
एयर के साथ भी
yes,
रिएक्ट करते हैं
yes, very good. We'll talk about the chemical properties in a bit. So they are soft and shiny. That's one thing that you should remember. They're soft, they're shiny. Obviously, they conduct heat and electricity. These are all properties of metals. Metals की आप लोगों ने सारी properties लिखी, right? But this is the general trend. Okay, so melting and boiling points show that they are lower as compared to other metals, and density of the metals is low, right? So now we'll talk about the change in the physical properties down the group. That's what you should really know for all uh, groups that we study in the periodic table. So if we talk about the trends in the physical properties, so you know the physical properties now. To get the physical properties, and now just let's just talk about the trends in the physical properties. So the trends, they basically show you how the properties vary as you move down the group, right? So if you just list all of the elements, lithium, sodium, potassium, uh, rubidium, cesium, and francium, right? So these are the group one metals. If you move down the group, let's just talk about how their physical properties vary. So number one, the atomic radius or the size of the element increases. And that is pretty trivial because the number of atomic shells increases, right? So basically lithium belongs to the first period, sodium belongs to the second, and so on. The period number increases, and the number of occupied electronic shells also increases. That's why their atomic radius increases. The melting and boiling points decrease. ठीक है अच्छा अब melting and boiling points decrease क्यों हो रहे हैं? Because you know as you move down the group, ठीक है, their size is increasing, right? Their size is increasing. So as their size increases, the they move farther apart, right? They move farther apart as their size increases, and that causes the metallic bond to become weaker, and that's why the melting and boiling points decrease. Similarly, the density increases, and that because increase in the atomic mass is more than the increase in the atomic radius, right? This is a tricky concept to understand. One would say if the atomic radius is increasing, why is the uh, why is the density increasing, right? If the atomic radius is increasing, then the atoms should be farther apart and the density should decrease, right? But as you move down the group, the change in the atomic mass is higher than the change in the atomic radius, right? So the volume, so the mass that these elements have is actually increasing at a much faster rate. It's increasing at a much faster rate as compared to the volume that is being occupied by these elements. So that's why their density overall increases. And obviously, you know that density, you must have studied in physics, density is the
density inversely proportional to volume
Yes. So density is basically the ratio of the mass per unit volume, right? So if the mass is increasing at a much higher rate as compared to the volume, that means there is an overall increase in the density, right? In the numerator, there is an overall increase in the numerator, greater increase in the numerator as compared to the denominator. So density overall, so the down the group increases. The electropositivity जो होती है ना, it is the tendency to donate electrons, right? So the electropositivity क्या होगा नीचे? As you move down the group, the electropositivity increases, right? And why does that occur? The same reason, okay, which I told you guys earlier. As the number of shells increases, the outermost electron moves farther and farther away from the nucleus. And that's why the force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron decreases. And that's why the electron finds it easy to leave this uh, uh, this atom, right? That's why the electropositivity increases, right? So that's all about the physical properties. In the next video, we'll talk about the chemical properties.